Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Anthony Frost, a professional 2.6 Hog player, and in this video I want to talk about how to prioritize your 2.6 Hog upgrades. So what I mean by this is what card should you upgrade first and what card should you maybe leave until all of your other cards have been upgraded first before you start to upgrade that card or like invest your resources into upgrading that card. Now, this is a question that requires a lot of nuance because there's not really a single right answer for it. It all just depends on what type of style of player you are. So for example, if you are a more aggressive player, then naturally your first instinct is probably to upgrade Hog Rider because that is the most offensive card in the deck, right? But if you're more of a defensive player, then you might want to consider upgrading Musketeer first or Cannon because it is a more helpful card for defending. Now, apart from your style of play, there are a few more objective things that you can consider. For example, I like to think of upgrading cards that have more impact per level upgraded. So what I mean by this is, for example, let's say you have Musketeer. Now, usually if your opponent has Fireball and your Musketeer and their Fireball are the same level, then their Fireball won't actually one-shot your Musketeer. It will leave it on like 1 HP. But if your Musketeer is under-leveled, then the Fireball will actually one-shot your Musketeer. So in this case, it actually makes a lot of sense to upgrade your Musketeer first to prevent your Musketeer from getting one-shot by Fireball. So that is a very logical decision to make. Let's think about, for example, Ice Spirit. If you play Ice Spirit at the bridge and your Ice Spirit is the same level as your opponent's Princess Tower, then it will actually connect. Your Ice Spirit will connect to the tower. But if your Ice Spirit is under level, if it's not the same level as your opponent's Princess Tower, then it won't actually connect to the Princess Tower. So that's another instance of where upgrading a card will actually change the game quite a bit. But for something like skeletons, right? Skeletons, let's be honest, like even if you upgrade skeletons, it doesn't really affect your game too much. Like, I can't really think of a situation where upgrading skeletons will actually meaningfully affect your gameplay. So that's probably what I'll suggest, is to not upgrade skeletons first because it doesn't really make a difference to your game as much as Ice Spirit or Musketeer would. Now, of course, if you're a more aggressive player, Hog Rider is a good choice to upgrade because, like, first of all, it does more damage and it will actually survive a Mega Knight. So if you like play Hog Rider at the bridge and your opponent plays Mega Knight, then if your Hog Rider is under level, then it won't actually connect to the tower. But if your Hog Rider is it's the same level as their Mega Knight and Princess Tower, then it will actually connect and get a hit. So I don't know about you, but like that is a pretty big difference to the game, getting Hog Rider hit. And so the first choice for me personally would probably be upgrading Hog Rider. Now let's talk about Ice Golem. Obviously now with Hero Ice Golem, it's much more broken and it probably makes sense to upgrade Hero Ice Golem. But there's even more of a reason to upgrade Ice Golem first, and that's to do with its interaction with skeletons and bats. Now, if you don't know, bats will die to Ice Golem if they are the same level, and it will also skeletons will die to Ice Golem if they are the same level. However, if your Ice Golem is under leveled, it won't actually kill the skeletons and the bats. So this is kind of a problem if your opponent is playing skeleton army, and if they're playing bats, and if they're playing night witch, and also if they're playing witch. So this is like a pretty big problem if your opponent is playing those cards. For example, in Golem beatdown, your opponent usually has night witch, and night witch is going to spawn bats, right? So it's going to be pretty hard to, you know, use your ice golem to defend the night witch, because the bats don't die to the ice golem's death damage if your ice golem is under leveled. So that's like another situation where upgrading ice golem makes sense. Now, if they're playing some sort of golem clone where they have golem and Skami and clone, then your ice golem is going to be pretty crucial in this matchup. And honestly, in any matchup where your opponent has some sort of skeletons, so like even skeleton barrel, like your ice golem is going to be pretty good in those matchups. So I'll suggest upgrading hero ice golem is going to be a pretty good choice as well. And it just depends on like what type of style, obviously, what type of style of player you are. If you want to be more aggressive, then you can upgrade hero ice golem. If you want to be more defensive, then you can upgrade musketeer, obviously. Now, let's talk about the next card, which is Fireball. So Fireball is kind of interesting, but obviously recently it got nerfed, or maybe Barbarians got nerfed, but like I don't know which one actually got nerfed, but it doesn't one-shot Barbarians anymore, even if they are the same level. So right now it doesn't seem to be worth it to upgrade Fireball. Now, maybe the only thing it's worth is if your opponent has an under-leveled musketeer, then you could potentially kill their musketeer with Fireball if your Fireball is like higher level than the musketeer. But that's kind of relying on your opponent to have under-leveled cards, which isn't, you know, it's not that common. You know, most of your opponents have pretty high level cards, especially if you play mid-ladder. So it doesn't really make sense to rely on that. And there doesn't seem to be any other benefit of upgrading Fireball. Like, even if they have Witch, I'm pretty sure Fireball still kills it if it's like under level. I'm not sure, maybe someone can fact check me on that in the comments below, but like obviously I'm talking about like under leveled Fireball, and then Log will still kill a Witch that is higher level. Pretty sure that's still the case, but anyway, let's talk about Log. Now, Log is probably not that important when it comes to prioritizing your upgrades, because it doesn't really affect your game that much. The main usage of Log is to kill skeletons and deal knockback, basically. And obviously Log doesn't kill Firecracker anyway, so even if it's the same level, it doesn't kill Firecracker, so there's not really a point to that. It's not like upgrading it will magically make it kill Firecracker, unless your opponent's Firecracker is under leveled, which of course we're not really dealing with. So Log isn't really that important either in terms of upgrading. The last card we have to talk about is Cannon. Now, Cannon it's kind of a high skill card where if you upgrade it, then it's still going to be pretty like hard to play because of its low health. For example, if your opponent has Hog Rider and you play cannon. If it's an under-level cannon, you can still get away with just playing a cannon if you play it at the optimal placement, which is of course the middle placement right here, where your other tower can also hit the Hog Rider. So if you have an under-level cannon, you can still fully counter Hog Rider if you play it at the right placement. If you play the cannon at the right placement. But if you upgrade cannon, then it will have more health and deal more damage, but it's not really a game changer, because the main thing about cannon is it really just depends on your placement. If you have a good placement, then, for example, this placement, this is a pretty good placement, then it doesn't really matter if you upgrade it or not, because it will still deal those last bit of damage. Like for example here, this bowler took 2 hits to take down the cannon. Even if the cannon was level 14, then the bowler will still need to take 2 hits to take down the cannon. So it actually doesn't really matter too much. Maybe the only difference was that it didn't really fully counter the bowler, because it didn't deal enough damage. Maybe that's the only thing. But then of course you can just play Ice Spirit. So it's not really that important if you think about it. It's more about your placement and your skill, basically. So that's pretty much all the cards that we've covered. In summary, if you are a more aggressive type of player and you're the type of player who likes to go in, then upgrading your Ice Golem and also your Hog Rider would be the better choice, because a lot of times when you're pushing, you want to play Ice Golem at the bridge and also Hog Rider behind it. And if they have skeletons or bats or anything, then your Ice Golem will be pretty important in taking them down with its death damage, basically. And obviously Hog Rider is just good to upgrade because it deals more damage, and in some cases it might actually be the difference of you getting hit and not getting hit, for example versus Mega Knight. And if you're more of a defensive player, I would suggest upgrading your Musketeer, because Musketeer will basically die to Fireball if it's under-leveled. And also certain combinations, for example like arrows and log together, I'm not exactly sure about that, but I'm pretty sure like it dies if it's under-leveled to arrows and log, but it doesn't die if it's like not under-leveled. And also it deals more damage on defense, which is pretty important if you're a defensive player, right? Like your only source of defense is basically your Musketeer and your cannon and your towers. So that's probably a better choice if you're a defensive player. And if you don't really fit into aggressive player or defensive player, so if you're like neutral, then probably upgrading Ice Spirit will be a good choice, because Ice Spirit you can play at the bridge, you can also use it for defense, and it's just a very versatile card. For example, like on defense, against a lot of cards, it will have that like difference, it will have that meaningful difference if you upgrade it, because of a lot of cards leave it on 1 HP, and it's just a very solid card for defending, although you have to learn like some interactions with it as well. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and comment and subscribe, and make sure to comment down what type of videos you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.